So-called honor killings are an archaic form of vigilante justice. These killings often target women who have defied their husband or father's moral code or religious beliefs. They only used to occur in certain Middle Eastern nations. But today, honor killings happen in the United States, even in big cities like Houston, Texas.
Oh my God, why did God do this to me?
While the man behind the killings in this case wants you to think that he was driven by honor, what he's really driven by is power and control. I've never worked on an honor killing case before, but when friends of mine were appointed special prosecutors in this case, I knew a lot of pressure was on them to prove to a jury that it was really not about religion at all.
I'm a very, very dangerous man. God knows it's from the world war so.
If his rules are not followed, you will die. It's as simple as that.
This isn't an attack on the Muslim religion. This is one man and one family's extremist views.
Around midnight, my phone rings. It's the desk officer informing me we got a case. It's in the Sugar Hill Galleria area of Houston. When I pull into the driveway, I'm met by the patrol officer that was the primary unit on the call. He found this car running with the tires spinning on the pavement, and at that time he saw the victim laying across the front seat, slumped over the console. It's a woman who's deceased. She was shot in the head. We called the medical examiner's office. They took possession of the victim. We were able to then collect evidence in and out inside the car. There was part of a bullet fragment recovered on the ground. There's a cell phone in the car, and a purse in the front passenger seat. In her purse, we found her wallet with her driver's license. It revealed her name was Guellery Bagherzadeh. She was approximately 30 years of age, and she lived in the community right there in the townhomes. Being responsible for the witness interviews of this investigation, I knocked on several doors, and a man who lived in the adjacent building over, he could see out of his bedroom window. He saw a silver or a light blue Camry or a Honda Accord fleeing from the scene.
But the witness doesn't get the license plate. He also had no idea what the driver looked like.
We go back and we're still going over the scene, and then we meet with Robin Bandar. We were told that he was on the phone with Guellery at the time of her murder. Now he's talking to her as she was driving home, and then he heard something. The line was still open, but there's nothing there. He's calling her name, Guellery doesn't respond, and he heard like a thud, and he was concerned that she may have been involved in a car accident. He drives to the townhome community where Guellery and her parents live, and he sees the police cars. Robin appeared to be upset, concerned, didn't know what happened. We explained to him that she's been shot. Guellery was murdered. After we concluded our scene investigation and the vehicle was removed, we walked to Guellery's parents' house to make a death notification. It was very emotional. Her mom just broke down, tears running down her face. Heartbreaking, for somebody to have to go through that.
When Robin Bandar shows up at the crime scene, he had been on the phone with her, so they have to take a good hard look at him to see if they have a motive, if they're upset, if he plays any part in all this.
Robin, he tells us that several years ago, he and Guellery had dated shortly, and now they were just good friends. He says she was driving home, probably a 45-minute drive, and they were on the phone the entire time. Guellery told him that she had been at Corey's, her boyfriend's house, and so we needed to talk to Corey because he was one of the last persons that saw Guellery alive. next day, Corey came to the homicide division. We learned that Guillory met Corey while she was at school. The night this murder occurred, Corey said he didn't know Guillory was coming over that evening, that there was a knock at the door. When he answered the door, Guillory said, "I just wanted to surprise you." So he said they just hung out for a couple hours, and then she drove home. We polygraphed Corey Beavers. We think he's telling us the truth.
The initial impression by the police department is that these people are believable and that they're not involved in the murder of Guillory. But it's not a waste of time, because the more people you can talk to get a feel for what's going on in the victim's life, the better your investigation is going to proceed.
I remember it was early in the morning and I got a call. I was in shock. Who would have done something like this to her? You know, you can't find anyone more likable than her. Guillory was always the life of every party. Guillory was born in Paris and grew up in Tehran, Iran. She was a force, passionate, lively, outspoken. Back in the day, there was a movement. This was right after an election in Iran, which was taken away, or at least that's how people felt. It was a one-party regime which told everybody what to do and how to live their life. So there were mass protests in Iran, and we just showed our support. In Houston, we worked together, planning events, hosting events, talked to the media. Our goal was to be the sound of the Iranian people, so people in the United States would be aware of what is happening. He was the one who would be there first and leave the last. Guillory was the forefront of every event. I think every person that was there knew her because she was very involved. People from her church, her school. It was just such an emotional moment.
After 5 more months of investigation, HPD is still searching for Guillory's killer. And then on November the 12th, 2012, a shocking 911 call is made.
911. Hello?
Oh, ma'am, my husband's been shot.
Did he shoot himself or did somebody else shoot him?
No, ma'am, somebody shot him. He's terrible. I hate my life. Why did God do this to me?
God wasn't the one that did it.
The caller is a frantic young woman named Nesreen Ursan. The victim is 28-year-old Cody Beavers, who's her husband. And to their surprise, law enforcement discovers he also happens to be the twin brother of Guillory's boyfriend, Corey.
I met with Nesreen, and I'll never forget what she said to me. She knew this was going to happen.
He always threatened that he'd pull a bullet between my eyes and between my boyfriend's eyes.
When we popped the vent off, there was these GPS devices.
One of them showed the date of Cody Beavers' murder.
My husband's been shot. There's blood all over the place.
I get a call about a body that's been found inside an apartment. When I arrived at Legacy Park Apartments, crime scene unit was there. They had the area taped off, and I was briefed by patrol of what they had so far. I'm told that there's a female, Nesreen Ursan, that came home from work and found her husband shot to death inside her apartment. His name was Cody Beavers. Did not see forced entry, and I go in. The victim was laying partially face down inside the living area. There looked like there had been a fight. Body looked like it had several strikes, indicating multiple shots. There was an AK-47 rifle that was leaning against the wall where the victim was found. One of his arms was actually reaching toward that weapon. I didn't really see anything that appeared to be missing. There's expensive items there, so it rules out robbery. It appeared to be a small caliber gun from multiple shots on the victim's body, but we didn't find any shell casings. Anytime a victim is found by his spouse, you're always going to start with, the spouse. And I met with Nazreen in my vehicle, and I'll never forget what she said to me. She told me, "Sergeant Duce, I have a lot to tell you if you're willing to listen to me." And I said, "We're going to go to our office." And that's where we went. And then we sat and talked. Nazreen told me that her and her husband, Cody, had met at school, and they had been married a short time before Cody was killed. She told me that they were afraid that this was going to happen, and that she was quite sure that her father, Ali Ersan, murdered Cody Beavers.
My dad always threatened that if he ever found out that I had a boyfriend, he'd pull a bullet between my eyes and between my boyfriend's eyes.
Nazreen explained to me that her father was a very devout Muslim from Jordan. Ersan had 12 kids from 2 people. He was very controlling, wanted to control her and any of her siblings' movement, wouldn't let her date, wouldn't let her go out with other people. And she and her siblings, as well as his second wife, Shamu, had been beaten and abused regularly by Ali Ersan. But Ali left Nazreen go to school at MD Anderson, and she got Americanized. She met Galleray, and she also met Corey Beavers, who introduced her to Cody Beavers. And they fell in love.
All right. I know it's hard. Galleray, you have to wait.
At that time, Nazreen stopped being concerned about her father. She was seeking to live her life. She was seeking to not be held captive in the ways that Ali Ersan was trying to force her to live against her will. Ali Ersan found out about Nazreen seeing Cody Beavers, and he showed up at her school. He caught her, and then she was taken home and then not allowed to leave. He kept her hostage.
He was beating me almost every single day.
Your dad?
Yes.
But Ersan would make trips out of the country. He left and went to Jordan. While he did, Nazreen ended up climbing out of a bathroom window. She ran away to live with Cody Beavers. Ali Ersan returned from Jordan, and now he's looking for her. Cody and Nazreen secretly got married and found an apartment at Legacy Park Apartments in Houston. But Nazreen knew that her father was stalking them.
He knows where I work, but he also knew where I lived.
They described seeing Ali Ersan's silver van at Legacy Park Apartments, and that it would slow down and be outside watching. And so they would take precautions to park away from their apartment. They bought an AK-47 rifle because they were afraid of her father. Her and her husband, Cody, had a daily routine. She would get up and leave the house by 6 a.m.
He walks me to my car, and then I drive him close so that he can go up the stairs, and he's supposed to call me and tell me he's safe inside. But today he didn't call me. And I kept calling him and kept calling him.
How many times do you think you tried to call?
About 25 times. I got home at about 4 or something. And I went in, and I was like, Cody, and I looked around, and he was in the corner on the ground, and there was blood everywhere.
And then Nazreen explained to me that she believed her father was also responsible for Galleray's murder.
Nazreen tells the investigators that after she and Cody got married, her dad contacted Galleray to try and find out where she was, but she would not give them any information.
She told him that he needed to leave Nazreen alone because she was doing the right thing. And this made him furious. And he said, I will get you. 3 nights later is when she was murdered. It is a unique thing for a person to be telling you that She knows that her father is responsible for not only the death of her husband, but also her best friend, because they dishonored him in his mind. I learned that Detective Richard Bolton was the lead investigator in Gallaray's murder.
Sergeant Doucet tells me, I got a guy that's being murdered. His name is Cody Beavers. His twin brother is Corey Beavers. So then, click. We know Corey Beavers. That's when we all come together, the FBI, the Houston Police Department, the Harris County Sheriff's Department, and because the Ursons live in Montgomery County, the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, 12 people working this whole case.
When the information came out in the press that Cody and Gallaray's murders might be connected, the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department just feel that sense of urgency because everybody wants to figure out what is the connection. It's somebody that knows them, who wants them both dead, so who is it?
We reach out to Ali Urson, and he agrees to meet with us.
People believe that because of the relationships you have with Nazreen and not approving of her dating this guy that she's married to now, that you would cause harm to Nazreen.
I never given that impression.
We asked him if he knew Cody Beavers, and he denied that he'd ever met him.
Have you ever threatened her or her husband?
I have not talked to them at all.
Okay.
He said, no, we don't know nothing about it. You know, we asked him where they were at the time. Well, we were probably at home. We don't know.
Regarding the woman that was killed, Gallary, did you know her?
No.
You never heard of Gallary?
No.
As a friend of your daughter?
I don't know who's their friends. I don't know who they talk to. I don't know anything about them.
Ali Ursan tried to come across as the caring father, just concerned about his daughter, but I've interviewed a lot of people, and his interview was deceptive.
Did you have anything to do with the death of Gallary?
I don't even know the woman. If I saw her, I wouldn't know her.
When I say the deception was there, he was showing signs. He had to step out several times to go smoke. He would repeat our questions to us.
I have nothing to do with that girl. I don't know her. I never saw her.
But ultimately, we didn't have the evidence we need to file murder charges on him.
You know, I wish I can do anything to help you guys.
My next step is I wanted a search warrant. I wanted to learn about him. I wanted to get into Ali Ursan's world. We talked to Nazreen again, and she went through everything about her father.
Tell me what your dad's name is again.
He has multiple names, but the one he goes by is Ali Ursan.
They learned that Ali immigrated to the United States in 1979, and he married an American girl who was only 17 years old, getting her GED at the time, named Robin Dahl. Robin Dahl later gave birth to 4 daughters named Nasima, Nadia, Nazreen, and Nada. In 1994, Ursan traveled to Jordan to find a new wife, and he returned with a teenage girl named Shamu.
He told my mother that he's just marrying that girl because he wants her to be a maid because my mom is blind. And in Islam, it's legal for him to marry more than one woman at a time.
Soon after Ursan returned with his new wife, his other wife, Robin, left him. She left behind the 4 children she had had with Ali Ursan with him. And he continued on to start a second family with Shamu, and they had 8 more children. And they all lived together on a compound outside of Houston in Conroe, Texas.
What business is your dad in?
He claims to be disabled. He has a lot of money.
From?
Many different criminal activities that he does. Fraudulent claims.
Nazreen told us this unbelievable story of how her father was this serial fraudster who had defrauded airlines, doing fraudulent lost baggage claims, public assistance agencies, food stamps, Social Security, identity theft. It just went on and on and on.
Ali Ursan and his wife, Shamu, they played the system, is what Nazreen described.
So we executed the search warrant for Ali's property.
We wanted to get to where we could file charges on Ali Ursan and his wife, Shamu, for fraud, and get them in custody, get them separated, to where we could talk with them and possibly even work them against each other.
We recover almost 200 credit cards, somewhere in Ali's name and the rest of them in other family members' names.
We were able to get enough information on the fraud case to where we could file charges. Once we're able to get Ersan in custody for the financial crimes, now we're at a race against time because he's only going to be in custody for a certain amount of time on a financial crime, and we're still trying to find the evidence we need to file capital murder charges on him.
That's too good.
We tried to interview Ali Ersan, but he would start, grabbing his chest.
Sir, what kind of problems are you having?
He's faking a heart attack to keep from being interviewed, and that happened several times.
After Ali Ersan refuses to answer any more questions, investigators decide to listen through all of his jail calls.
One of the calls that we recovered is him speaking with his son, Nassim.
Nassim, listen to me, baby. I'm a very, very bad man. I don't know how many lives have to be lost. I'm a very, very dangerous man. God knows, it's from the World War II.
The investigators begin to wonder if Ali Ersan's son, Nassim, is possibly involved in the murders.
Listen to me. We need you. You are the man of the house.
There were few people that knew, and now they can't speak.
We thought maybe this is Nassim Ersan getting as close as you possibly can to confessing to murdering people without saying their names or saying I pulled the trigger.
We didn't have enough evidence to file capital murder charges on them, but in the evidence from the search warrant, there's an envelope that had been found in the glove box of Ali Ersan's van, and written in handwriting is the license plate of Galaray's vehicle.
This leads the investigators to do a search for any traffic stops in the area on the night of Galaray's murder.
Shut your door for me.
And they find a traffic stop where Ali Ersan is speeding in the area on the very night of Galaray's murder.
That wife in the car? Yes. Okay. Here's your backseat passenger. Which one?
Well, lo and behold, from the time our 911 call for Galaray's murder to that stop was like 40-something minutes.
The time of Galaray's murder compared to the time on that traffic stop, that would have added up to the amount of time it would have taken them to get to that point.
And they were in the same kind of car that a witness described seeing speeding away from the murder.
At that time, we had surveillance on the Ersan family, on their movement, learned about their vehicles, learned everything that we could about them.
With FBI's resources, we have some aerial surveillance of Ali's sons hiding something that appears to be a secret compartment on top of the roof. There was a vent on Ali's house. It's like the eave of your house. Based off this surveillance, got another search warrant, went back to Ali's house, and we're up on top of the roof looking for this hidden compartment. But you could tell that the vent had been tampered with. When we popped the vent off, there was these GPS devices that had been placed up inside that eave of the house. You know, the ones that you used to set on your dashboard when you drive around.
Those GPS units were submitted to the FBI forensic laboratory where they were processed. One of them showed the date of Cody Beaver's murder. The location that it went to was Legacy Park Apartments.
The Legacy Park Apartments is where Cody and Nazreem were living when he was murdered. Now, Ali Ersan can be directly linked to the capital murders of both Galaray and Cody. So, friends of mine were appointed special prosecutors of the case.
Ali Ersan was charged with capital murder of Galaray Bagherzadeh and Cody Beavers, and his son Nassim and Shamu, Ali Ersan's second wife, who were charged with the murder of Galaray Bagherzadeh. As we were getting closer to trial, we were missing a first account, some eyewitness that could say, I saw Ali Ersan with a gun. Shamu, we felt, had all that evidence. Shamu had time away from Ali Ersan, that she'd been sitting in jail for quite a long period of time. Some part of his control over her had been broken, and she knew she had to tell the story. So we approached her attorney and asked if she wanted to cooperate. They said yes. And at that point, Shmoo was forthcoming.
Defense was Alan Tanner and Rudy Duarte. Very talented and very thorough, definitely formidable opponents.
We felt the defense would definitely play on the cultural religious tenet, and the fact the case was very circumstantial.
Pretty sure the fallback defense is picking apart the prosecutor's case piece by piece, witness by witness, and arguing reasonable doubt.
I want the jury to understand that Ali Ersan was responsible because we all believe Ali Ersan's a dangerous guy. We thought that if he were to get out, he would probably retaliate against every person involved.
4 years after Ali Ersan is arrested, he goes on trial for the capital murders of Gallaray and Cody. The Harris County Courthouse was still closed from damage from Hurricane Harvey, so they tried the case at the federal courthouse. Because the federal courtroom was so small, they only allowed the cameras in for the first day.
This isn't an attack on the Muslim religion. This is one man and one family's extremist views that were taken to the extreme.
In the past, I handled 2 cases involving religion. Defendants named Bhageshwarna and Sharma, and also Pastor James Eugene Tucker. In those cases, you try to walk the line of not belittling or demeaning anybody's religion while making the point that what this is really about is one man's control or power.
He wanted to kill all of those involved in bringing shame and dishonor in his mind to his family. We wanted the jury to understand the evidence was pretty overwhelming, like the GPS devices that Ali and Shmoo had on their car really laid out an unbelievable number of trips to these locations that the only explanation for them being there is to stalk and kill these people.
She's going to tell you she was kidnapped. She's going to tell you she was handcuffed and beaten by her mother, Shmoo. She's going to tell you all sorts of things, and I don't believe them. And it's up to you to decide if you believe her.
There is a lot of testimonial evidence, and so the defense strategy was to discredit those folks and to point the finger in other directions if they could.
Listen to what they have to say and weigh it out and see if you think they are telling the truth or if they are lying.
One of the most powerful and important witnesses in this case is Nazreen. Nazreen's testimony is very important to explaining the mentality of her father and growing up with that man.
You can see the fear in her as she's walking in the courtroom to take the stand.
She said that Ali definitely ruled with an iron fist when someone disobeyed or did something he didn't approve of. The beatings were severe. And she said that where the Ersan family lived, it was a compound where he controlled who came in, who left, and what happened while they were there.
It's the defense lawyer's turn to cross-examine Nazreen. Their goal is to try and poke holes in her story, to poke holes in her credibility, while making her father seem a little more sympathetic.
Alan Tanner is cross-examining Nazreen. He's doing a great job of bringing out, hey, he wasn't all bad. He did some good things. He, for instance, gave y'all pets. You remember this? And she agrees, yes, he gave us a pet. And you remember at one point he bought you a monkey, a pet monkey. Yes, I remember that. And then he killed it. I thought, well, that didn't go the way they planned.
There's only one person who can give an inside account of both of the murders of Gallaray and Cody. Ali Ersan's second wife, Shmoo.
Shmoo was with him each time and knew what was happening, the planning, the plotting, the thought process, the facts of the brutal murders. She did not want to testify in front of him. She was still scared of him, and she was scared actually of her own sons. I had asked her to please look at me and not look at him to try and alleviate some of the fear. She laid out when Ali decided it was the night that Gallaray was going to die. They saw Gallaray leave the Beaver's address, and They followed her.
When she went back there to turn around, they blocked her in. The same's the one that went up there and shot her.
Shmoo laid out the morning of Cody's death. She said they knew at that time from making various runs that Cody didn't lock the apartment when he walked Nasreen down to her car. And so she detailed they were waiting for them to leave the apartment, going upstairs and laying in wait for Cody to come back. Just her matter-of-fact demeanor and laying it all out, it was shocking. The defense's position was she was just lying and she was trying to get revenge. She got a deal, and so she was just going to say or do whatever to benefit herself. The problem with the defense's line of attack was it wasn't just Shmoo's word that we had. We have the GPS. So there was objective evidence to back up what she was saying.
The state rested their case, and then the defense called Ali Ersan to the stand. You gotta believe that his lawyers advised him not to do that, but they probably knew no one's ever been able to tell Ali Ersan what to do.
He presents himself as an adoring father that wanted his children to make good decisions that would go along with the Muslim faith, and that he was not happy about what Nasreen had done, but he certainly would never have harmed her.
He's trying to say that Nasreen, she's the reason he's here. She is making a lot of this up, and that she's the dangerous one.
We're fearful that the jury's going to think Ali Ersan is an affable older gentleman, patriarch of his family, loves his children. That is what he wants to portray to the jury. But I know Ali Ersan is about power and control. Most of the times when you're cross-examining a witness, you're asking questions such as their yes or no. You're not really allowing them to expand on their answers. I knew Ali was never going to do that, but I knew how important it was to maintain my composure and just continually ask my questions until I got an answer, not what he wanted to tell the jury, but an answer to my question. It was justice that a woman got to cross-examine Ali Ersan. Ali does not think much of women. He certainly does not think that they should be allowed to question him. He did let his irritation for the way I was conducting my cross-examination be known to the jury.
He is staring daggers at Marie Prim, and he's got 2 pencils in his hand.
He looked at me and angrily busted the pencils, and it scared the jury for my safety. I thought, who better to convince the jury of what kind of person you are than yourself? And you just did it. In my closing statement, in the murder of Gelare Bagherzadeh and Cody Beavers, I want the jury to know there is not a tenet of the Islam faith that told Ali Ersan to commit these acts of cruelty. The decision should not be a conviction of the Islam faith. It's a judgment on Ali Ersan.
The prosecutors had to walk a fine line since religion is so involved with all this. But really, when it comes down to it, this was never about religion or God. It was about the power and control and arrogance of one man. And they did a beautiful job explaining that to the jury.
I don't think the jury was out an hour, and they found him guilty.
It was a long time coming, a testament to all of the hard work put in by the prosecutors and all the investigators that worked on this case.
I think it brought more relief to the community. They just wanted justice.
Mr. Ersan, we believed, was the most culpable of the crimes, therefore deserved the most punishment.
In the punishment phase of the trial, the jury has to consider 2 factors. The first is Ali Ersan going to be a future threat to society? The second consideration is, are there any mitigating factors in this man's entire life that because of that, life is more deserving than the death penalty?
We brought Ali's first wife, Robin, who was Nesreen's mother, to testify.
The state is allowed to bring in any witness from any point in Ali Ersan's life to further describe what kind of a man he is.
Robin testified about how they had met.
I was 17, and then the people I was staying with kicked me out of their house. I just first met him, and he raped me. I was kind of ashamed. And then after that, he says, "No, I have to marry you."
He essentially rapes her and turns it into a forced relationship. She had 4 children with him.
He found that my mom was looking for me, and he took me to a different county. And he didn't let me know that she was looking for me. And he threatened me with a knife.
Robin testified that he had abused her, threatened her with weapons, tried to kill her.
He scared me a lot. I tried to get away many times.
Next, in the punishment phase, we called Nesreen back on the stand. Nesreen says Cody Beavers is not the first son-in-law Ali Ersan killed. He killed his first son-in-law back in 1999.
Nesreen says she had an older sister named Nasima, and Nasima was living at home and had met a friend of Ali's, and she kind of liked him. He had approached Ali and asked for her hand in marriage, and Ersan said no. Ersan was a Sunni Muslim, and this friend was a Shiite Muslim, and there's no way he was going to let him marry his daughter. Ali Ersan went to Jordan. They eloped to Dallas. They got married. So when Ersan returned home, he called him and he says, "Come over, let's talk about it." Nesreen was 14 at the time. She was in the house. He made all the family get in the back room. So Nesreen could hear what was going on, but she couldn't see. And she said she heard a loud shot from a shotgun, and then she heard 2 smaller shots, like from a smaller caliber weapon. Ali Ersan called Montgomery County Sheriff's Office and said, "He pulled a gun on me. I had to defend myself."
The police at the time didn't do much investigation into it. There was a gun there that fit the story that Ali had given them.
Ali Ersan knows what he's doing when he's talking to law enforcement.
The Montgomery County Sheriff's Office took Ali Ersan at his word, self-defense. It was never presented to a grand jury, and Ali got cleared in that.
For the trial, we put together the crime scene evidence from that case that wasn't looked at back in 1999. The way it's described to the police, the victim's angry and Ali just shoots him and he falls where he is. But crime scene photos demonstrate that the victim had been in a different position for a long period of time. You could see the blood going down and then turning. The scene had been adjusted. This was important in terms of, again, played into the theme of you're going against my wishes, you're dishonoring me, you're dishonoring the family, you're dishonoring the religion. And Ali Ersan's not going to let that slide.
In the punishment phase of the trial, the defense has a hard battle, but they try to humanize Ali Ersan as much as they can.
What the defense has to do is try to give the jury something that they can feel is mitigating on behalf of Mr. Ersan. They want the jury to have a reason not to sentence him to death.
And they do that by flying in some relatives of his from Jordan and also by putting Ali Ersan's grown sons on the witness stand.
A couple of his sons testified about what a great guy he was, but I can see that the jury understands that's not the way that the evidence played out. Clearly, he was abusive.
What stood out in my mind was how brainwashed these boys were. That almost made me sad.
Ersan's response was calm as the judge read the sentence, death by execution. In the words of Cody Beavers' mother, her son's murder and that of Gilary Bagherzadeh were the acts of an evil coward, and the verdict a victory.
That's a strange feeling to get a verdict where they sentence a person to death. It's a pretty powerful and emotional thing for everybody. Ali's sentence was important in terms of the other defendants having the opportunity to see what was potentially coming. It led to Nassim pleading guilty. He got 40 years, and Shmoo got a deal for her testimony.
Prior to the trial, Ali Ersan's wife, Shmoo, pled to a lesser offense of felony kidnapping for that time when they held Nasreen captive at the house. She's expected to be eligible for parole in 2026. To have to walk into the courtroom and testify against that monster while he's glaring at her took some courage. And I think that everybody appreciates that she's a victim in this case also.
I was left with a lot of admiration for Nasreen Ersan and for Robin Dahl, his first wife. Those are probably the strongest women that I've ever met in my entire life. To be able to stand up to a man that you know has no problem killing somebody. They refuse to be ruled by his cruelty. And to me, that's amazing.
Cody Beavers and Gallery Bagherzadeh never would have imagined that this could happen to them. Human nature says, well, I mean, it doesn't matter who you are friends with or who you fall in love with. It's just, that's the way it is. But there are some people that cuts against their beliefs enough that it's worth killing somebody.
These prosecutors did a phenomenal job. They had a lot to deal with politically and religiously, and they handled all that. If anybody deserved the death penalty, Ali Ersan did.
Cody Beaver's mother and the family got to stand there and watch him being walked out on his way to death row. And she hugged my neck and she thanked me. And it was like fulfillment, you know, it's like a lot of work, but we got there. It was sad to see a young couple, how happy they were, how happy she was, and how her life was changed. They took her husband, her love.
This one? How to survive the end of the world.
There are always bad people doing bad things. And then there are people like Hillary. Hillary could have changed the world. She could definitely have an impact. She was full of life. I think Hillary was very brave. She always did what she thought was the right thing to do.
Alan Morgan found his wife's body in the back storeroom of their shop when he and their 2 children returned from the cinema on Thursday night.
This is the position that she was left in.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrific, isn't it?
Carol's life was taken away from her at the age of 36. She deserves for the police to find who killed her.
Carol should still be alive today and enjoying her children and her grandchildren, and somebody's robbed that of her.
In over 40 years of investigative work, nobody had been charged with Carol's murder.
The attack that was sustained on Carol was so ferocious and so brutal.
We're investigating the murder that happened at the shop back in 1981.
Everyone that loved her deserves to know what happened to Carol.
The tragic element of this case is simply that it's not been solved. My case, if we ever get it there, is going to be circumstantial.
Yeah, it is. So, that's my overview. It's a bloody tough case.
This is one last attempt to try and get justice for Carol.
The scene of our offence is 61 Finch Crescent in Linslade. Carol was alone in the store at the time of the attack as her husband Alan and her 2 children, Dean and Jane, were out at the cinema. So in 1981, the original SIO focused very much on a burglary or a robbery that had gone wrong.
A man was seen about 500 yards from the shop in a motor car.
He was seen to be clutching to his chest 2 plastic bags. It would appear at this stage that the bags contained the stolen money and the cigarettes from the shop.
That weapon that was used must have been a really sharp-bladed article to have caused such brutal injuries.
Carol still got her wedding ring on, and this was supposed to be a robbery, and if it was a robbery, why did they not take this stuff that would have been valuable?
Despite having an alibi checked and accepted by the police, Mr. Morgan can't convince some of his neighbours that he's innocent.
What are they saying about you, It's been offhand that I killed my wife. And as the police know themselves, and you yourselves know, well, I was in Luton, taking a kiss of the pictures.
Alan's alibi has been checked. His alibi is concrete. I have to accept that that's where he was. Our motive is essentially the classic love story. There's an ongoing affair between Alan and Margaret, and that the motive is embedded in that affair.
There was a fairly prolonged relationship, I think, between Alan and Margaret. There's anecdotal evidence that they were even found in bed the very next morning.
So this is Alan and Margaret after the murder. Then moved up north, and then they've gone on to get married.
My decision is to bring both Alan and Margaret in under arrest.
Hello, Alan, I'm from the police. I've come to arrest you this morning on suspicion of the murder of Carol Morgan.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of conspiracy to murder.
What?
And the murder of Carol Patricia Morgan.
I had no idea that anything like this was going to occur.
Do you have any information about who was responsible?
Oh, none at all.
Police are appealing for anyone with information, no matter how small, to get in touch and speak to the dedicated incident room.
Alan and Margaret have been released from police custody under investigation. It can be frustrating when you have to release suspects whilst the investigation continues, but particularly in the most serious of cases, we don't give up. There's been comprehensive media strategy which involved witness appeals, and as a consequence of that, a new witness has come forward with new evidence, potentially undermining Alan Morgan's alibi. We're scheduled for a 2-hour briefing today because there is lots and lots to go through. I'm going to hand over to Lindsay if you want to take us through all of the significant developments since we last met, please.
In terms of witnesses, we had a guy call into the incident room a couple of weeks ago, Michael Merrin, who lived in Leighton Buzzard at the time of the murder. Essentially, he has said that his brother sent him a message after Christmas with a picture of the poster from Linslade about the murder and said, what do you think about this? He's had a think about it and has made contact with us. And I've spoken to him, and he is saying that he was a regular at the shop. He knew Alan and Carol to talk to. He spoke to Alan on a regular basis about football and cars. He knew Alan's car by sight, and he knew Alan well enough to obviously have conversations regularly.
On the evening of the 13th of August 1981, took the turn around the roundabout towards Leighton Buzzard, and I see Alan Morgan on the other side of the road, 1, 2, 3 seconds, and he drove past in that direction, heading towards Finch Crescent. And I obviously carried on home. A couple of days later, when the local paper came out, it stated that she died on the Thursday evening and that the police weren't interested in Alan Morgan because he was at the cinema. And I turned to my mum and I said, well, that can't be right. I saw him on Thursday evening when we were driving back from the railway station at around 6:45. And my mum said to me, well, do you think you should go and tell the police that? And I said, I don't know, what do you think? And she said, well, if you're sure that you saw him. I said, Mum, I definitely saw him. So I made arrangements to go to Leighton Buzzard Police Station, and I told them what I'd seen, and they said, thank you very much for coming in, but at this moment in time, we've ruled Mr. Morgan out of our inquiry because he was at the cinema in Luton at that point in time.
And that was, for me, the end of it. I know what my 18-year-old self saw, and I 100% am convinced, have always been convinced, that what I saw that night was Alan Morgan in his car.
Clearly, what we need to investigate and explore is whether we can prove or corroborate that information, because if Alan has come back to Linslade, then clearly that presents him the opportunity to murder Carol. So we made arrests in November of last year. Wherever they could rely upon, I can't remember that, that's what they did.
I see.
So the National Crime Agency have a number of specialists who I can ask for objective and independent advice that I can consider as part of my decision-making process. What I would say is that Alan was always considered to have an established alibi. He had taken the children to the cinema to a double bill, which we think would have run for about 4 hours.
Mm-hmm. They were at the cinema 4 hours and Dad would have sat next to him all the time? No.
There is doubt around,
Okay.
or there is the possibility that he could have done anything within that time,
okay.
and his alibi is not nailed on.
Oh, great.
And then that is called into question, because as recently as this year, a witness has come forward as a result of all of our media activity. There's a chap by the name of Michael Merrin.
Yeah.
He specifically says he sees Alan Morgan travelling back into Linslade in his car on the night of the murder. Now, I've got the team searching the 7,000 documents that we've got, but we just can't find any reference to Merrin or anything that Merrin may have provided to the original investigation team. This for me is a domestic homicide, layering lots and lots and lots of coincidences and lies, and but in terms of direct physical evidence, I'm not sure I'll ever. I'm not sure the golden nugget exists. Now, there is forensic work still ongoing, but I think this will always be a circumstantial case.
Going to your hypothesis then, Morgan and Spooner conspired together to do it.
Yeah.
So I get all that. What I'm not as clear on is, do you have a hypothesis or are you still working through that? Who's
as to who was the...
Yeah.
I haven't.
Okay.
I can't sit here. To this day, I'm not sure. I think either of them could have done.
Yeah.
I think they could have paid someone to do it. I really don't know. My case, if we ever get it there, it is going to be circumstantial.
Yeah, it is. So, it's a bloody tough case, isn't it? Let's be honest, from where it is. I concur with what your hypotheses are. The issue for me is how we get there, of course. And that's always the challenge, isn't it, you know?
I am Sian Saunders, Senior Crown Prosecutor in the Complex Casework Unit of the Crown Prosecution Service. My job is to decide whether or not there's a realistic prospect of conviction in a case and whether it's in the public interest to prosecute that case. This is an incredibly interesting case, but it's also going to be a very, very difficult case because witnesses may be dead and witnesses may not remember. So we are relying on an investigation that happened over 40 years ago. So it's going to be a very difficult case to prosecute.
We're just heading out to Linslade Cemetery to try and locate the gravestone of Carol Morgan. So in a cold case like this, I think it gives us some good background in relation to the family. So for us, it's quite important to try and find that out, who's put the gravestone down and what it says.
We're here, aren't we? Somewhere here.
No idea where this is going to be. I'm assuming we're looking for something a lot older.
Yeah, some of these look new and cared for.
This one?
The open book.
Here we go. Cherished memories of our beloved daughter Carol, forever in our thoughts.
And then the other side of the book
is blank.
Is blank. No mention of her being a mum or a wife.
Or a surname.
No. It's awful. Poor Carol. I think the fact that Morgan isn't on there suggests that maybe the parents wanted to disassociate her from the name, from him. I mean, could it suggest that they didn't have a very good relationship with him, or that they thought that he was involved in some way in her death?
Auntie Carol was someone who was a quiet, relaxed person, but bubbly. She was friendly. She always smiling. I just remember her always smiling. I remember a time when we didn't see Auntie Carol. This was after she married Alan Morgan. It was a couple of years after they married, they moved away to Leighton Buzzard, and we never heard from them again. We lost contact with them, and I think a lot of that was to do with the fact that he was so manipulative. I felt that he's had something to do with it. When I was younger, he just was a person that I didn't know him much, but whenever I saw him, he wasn't a person that was very friendly. He was nothing like Carol. She was open and kind, and he wasn't.
The investigation has stalled somewhat during the pandemic. So we recently reviewed all of the original witnesses who provided statements to the investigation back in 1981. There were a number of those witnesses that we hadn't been able to trace, hadn't been able to catch up with. And in the last week or so, we've been able to trace one of those witnesses who's provided significant information to the investigation. This was somebody that lived locally, somebody who was a child, i.e. under 18 years old at the time of the offence, and who not only knew our suspects, but also knew Carol, our victim. And I think at this stage, that's as much as I'm prepared to say. Obviously, when a witness contacts us, we have to have some conversation with them to ascertain what it is that they've got to say, what is their account. In this particular instance, the evidence that this individual started to talk about was so significant and so key and critical to our case that the officer deliberately stopped that conversation and said, I can't talk to you about this in any depth. We asked them to stop talking, and we asked them to wait until we're in a position to go and sit down with them and capture the entire account for the first time as much as possible on camera. And as we speak at this moment in time, those officers are with that witness and securing her account. Yes, massive, absolutely massive. Massive development for the investigation. We are very much, as a team, of the opinion that this is the piece of evidence that we have been looking for. This is the direct evidence that has evaded us so far.
Right then, and we're all good to go. Okay, and what do you think happened? What do I think happened to Carol? I think she had a fight. And lost the fight. Who would have wanted to fight her? Whoever it was really angry at her, hated her. And what makes you say that? Because of the way she was killed. It's a pretty savage way, isn't it? And do you know anyone that might have wanted her dead? Yeah. Who? Her husband. And I suppose Margaret.
when I was 14. I got expelled from school, and Margaret was assigned as my tutor from the age of 14 to 16. I was in a pretty bad place. I was really, really struggling. And Margaret really helped with that. So I could talk about, you know, the sort of stuff you wouldn't talk to your mum or your dad about, you know. And yeah, she saved my life in some ways. I came to really admire Margaret and to respect her a lot, and I grew fond of her. It was at least 3 months before the murder. It could have been longer. I went to a pub called Dolphin, which no longer exists in Lane Buzzard. I met both of them there, and it wasn't just a casual thing. It was arranged by Margaret, and I couldn't really understand why. It led to a conversation about, well, I'd quite like Carol dead, from Alan. And then them talking about various ways and ruling them out, like insulin. Then there was car accident, and there was like, neither one of them knew enough about car mechanics to be able to do that. And what about the children? They could be in the car, etc. Looking at it through my adult eyes now, you know, why did it take you 42 years to speak up? But it's not as straightforward as that. It's like I was a 17-year-old mixed-up kid who didn't really know which way was up and had more than enough of her own problems. I found out that Carol had died. Margaret phoned me and told me. I was absolutely freaked out. And she was very keen to say, don't talk to anyone. She kept saying he didn't do it. And I kept saying, yeah, but I don't believe he didn't do it. You might believe that, but I don't believe that. I think he's capable of it. And he hated her. You know he hated her. And now I'm confused. Now I'm really frightened now. Because the one person I never considered that could have done it is her. In a million years. I never asked myself that. I never asked her that. I never questioned it. I totally 100% trusted that she was a good person. She would dream of doing that. She saved my life, you know. She'd been so good to me. She would never hurt anyone. And I don't know anymore whether I'm right. And it's killing me. I always hoped that I would have a chance, you know, that somebody would ask me, that the police would come to me. And I was pleased and relieved when my mum said, the police were here, came to see me and they want to speak to you. And I was like, hallelujah. Hallelujah.
To cut a really long story short, essentially she went to the Dolphin pub. She was driven there by Margaret and Alan was already there. They discussed that he hated Carol, he didn't want her in his life, and how could they get rid of her? There was a discussion around, if we did get rid of her, maybe we could do it with insulin. Then they discussed, well, maybe we could set up a car crash. And then they sort of said, well, actually, maybe we could get someone else to help. Looking back now as an adult, she now thinks they were trying to involve her in a conspiracy, and she was so frightened that she left the pub. Margaret then came after her and said, oh, what are you worried about? It's only a joke. It's only a joke. He's not going to do anything. And Jane categorically says that she believes that Alan would be capable of doing that, and she did think it would happen.
This is a huge step forward. This is the first time we've heard this direct evidence, so that absolutely supports the need to bring them in under arrest, and along with everything else, put this evidence to them. There's confirmation of a conspiracy, and there's direct evidence of overhearing that conspiracy being discussed. Still a long way to go, still a lot of work to do, but a kind of work to be done with a renewed vigour and you know, with some more optimism now around what that might result in. Yeah, it's good. It's good development. We are in a different position this time round. You know, I accept that on that first arrest, you could almost say was almost like a bit of a fact find, really. And I think, if I'm being honest, we were in a position where they had the upper hand, as did their legal representation. And we're down in Brighton, and I think everything was kind of stacked against us. I see it very differently this time round. No, we're not popping down the road to Brighton. You're coming back to Bedfordshire, which is where the murder was committed. You know, this is a murder. This is a murder investigation, not some sweets that have been nicked off a shelf in your local co-op store. So you're going to come back to Bedfordshire and we're going to deal with you in Bedfordshire. You know, straight away, we are dictating this is what's happening. We are in control of this. This is our investigation and we are running it.
And it feels different this time, I think, to you.
Well, now we've got something to put to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those being Jane. So, yeah, we've got things to talk about.
Detectives investigating the death of a woman near Leighton Buzzard nearly 40 years ago have arrested 2 people on suspicion of murder.
What can you tell me about Jane Bunting?
No comment.
Can you tell me a bit more about the relationship between you and Jane?
No comment.
So, Jane says that you were being quite open about the fact you wanted to get out of your marriage.
Okay, no comment.
Did you? Did you want to get out of your marriage?
No comment.
You never know what to expect when you go into an interview. We prepare for all eventualities. We prepare for people to say nothing, exercise their right to go no comment. But if someone is innocent, particularly of a murder, and they have played no part in the murder, one would expect them to be honest, transparent, detailed, and try and help you, particularly if it's your wife or someone that you love, you know, and care about.
So she said some of the suggestions that you'd come out with were that you could use your insulin to kill her. Have you ever thought about doing that?
No.
That you could stage a car accident. Have you ever thought about doing that?
No.
You both then began to discuss various ways about killing Carol, about what if Carol had a car accident. Is this jogging any memories?
No.
Margaret?
No.
One of the things that you said is, I'd quite
I'm alleged to have said, not said.
Well, this is what I'm trying to get to the bottom of.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you're
Did you
saying
say
I
that?
said it.
Okay.
But I'm alleged to have said it, but don't comment. I did not.
You did not? Okay, just tell me that then, if you didn't. I'd quite like my wife gone.
No,
You didn't say that, or you did say that?
I didn't say that. Oh, I don't know.
You don't know if you said it?
Don't comment.
Do you remember that you asked Jane not to talk to the police about this conversation in the pub?
No.
Did you ask her not to
No.
mention to the police?
I don't recall the conversation at all.
One of the things that Jane said to you in regards to about killing someone, that she could never do that. And then you replied and she said it was as cold as ice, I could.
Now, I'm sure now you can see, Margaret, why you're in custody today, because
Absolutely,
of
but- Yeah,
what she's saying.
I do not recall any of those conversations, and I have said that all the way along.
Yeah. Because if her account is right, there is a conspiracy going on there. That's if her account is right, okay? Me frowning at me, but if her account is right, there's the conspiracy. It's a very serious.
I understand that.
Yeah?
I do understand
So you
that.
can see why now you're in custody today. Now, I'm glad you understand that.
Yes, I do. But
All right.
as I say, and I keep repeating it, I do not recall
I know you
any
keep
of
saying.
these conversations.
You keep saying you do not recall any of these conversations, Margaret, but you're not saying they didn't happen.
Good, Dad. She can't keep to a no comment at all. She's advised again, but still couldn't help itself.
That is a bizarre response, isn't it? I don't recall
Yeah,
it. I don't
that's
recall it.
really bizarre.
You'd be like...
Because she goes no comment.
Yeah.
And so then I say, well, okay, let's clarify. You saying no comment because you don't remember, or are you saying no comment because you just don't want to say? No, it's because I don't remember.
It is a bizarre, because you know, what you'd expect is, no, that conversation didn't happen. That conversation has never happened.
No.
Don't know what she's talking
Weird.
about, but
Yeah.
to say, I don't remember it, it's not very credible, is it? We, so far in this investigation, are no nearer being able to prove who murdered Carol. However, we are remarkably close now to being able to prove that there was a conspiracy to have Carol murdered.
You then asked Jane if her boyfriend would know anyone who would kill Carol.
Did he? I don't know. I don't. No.
Did they approach somebody who was known to them, or indirectly or directly? Were they able to recruit for want of a better phrase, a hit person to carry out the murder? It's not something we can answer with any degree of certainty at the moment. There's only Alan or Margaret that can tell me if somebody was paid by them to murder Carol.
Jane said that she felt like she was being drawn into a conspiracy, something that she didn't want to be part of, something that you wanted her to be part of. Is that right?
No comment.
Did you want Jane to be part of plans to murder your wife?
No comment.
Was that your goal that evening?
I've put a phone call into the Crown Prosecution Service just to consider the charging decision. I know that the interview teams are kind of there and chomping at the bit, and they'd really like to see us go for a charge, but at the moment my thoughts are that they're likely to be released under investigation.
We now have a significant amount of evidence that suggests that Alan and Margaret Morgan were involved in this offence. But I can't charge the case until I'm absolutely sure that there's nothing in the material from the 1981 case that might undermine our case against Alan and Margaret. And so I've advised the police to complete a review of all the paperwork from the 1981 case. The decision to charge has to be right, and it has to be right first time in a case like this. And it's my decision, and one that I have to be prepared to stand by. And until the case is ready, I'm not prepared to make a charging decision.
A man and a woman in their 70s arrested in connection with the death of a woman near Leighton Buzzard nearly 40 years ago have been released under investigation. The body of 36-year-old...
Police say while no one has ever been charged, they remain committed to finding out the truth for Carol's family.
It's a huge undertaking to review all of the investigation material, but it's so important that it's done properly, and it's so important that it's given the right time. It can make or break your case. Today's effectively D-Day, if you like. Today is the day where I find out whether 4.5 years of investigative work is going to result in a prosecution. So this is us having a conference with CPS and council now that they're in receipt of our full evidential case, and asking, OK, are we going to prosecute this? Are you going to give me a charging decision? Are we going to court?
So we are moving closer
to being able to reach an ultimate decision on the critical question of whether there is a case to go to a jury or there isn't.
This is a complex case which relies on the person presenting it to a court understanding the fine detail and being able to explain to a jury how those small pieces of evidence fit together into the bigger picture. Whilst the decision as to whether or not to prosecute is always going to be one for me, it's incredibly helpful to have an opinion from Pavlos because he is known to have worked on large and complex cases in the past.
Okay, so this has been the most thorough re-examination of this case. And if there's a case, there'll be a case of conspiracy to murder against Alan Morgan, Margaret Morgan. And if there's a case to charge against them both, I think everyone will agree that there is more evidence in relation to Alan than there is in relation to Margaret, albeit that she's inextricably linked given her close relationship with Alan Morgan. So the case that I've advised in favour of charging, which the Crown Prosecution Service will review, is that Alan Morgan and Margaret Morgan conspired together and with the person who killed Carol Morgan to murder her, and that was done by offering payment, which was made to somebody who then committed murder.
Of course I want to catch the person that murdered Carol. Of course we do. But there's no direct evidence about who that somebody was. There really are only two people that know the answer to that question, and they're the two people that we're investigating for the conspiracy to murder Carol.
In order to prove a conspiracy, we only have to prove that there was an agreement to kill. So in this case, we would be alleging that Alan and Margaret found somebody and paid them to kill Carol.
So busy. But come on in and meet the team. Alongside the normal lines of inquiry and investigation that my team have been conducting, one area of investigation that we used was that on each occasion that Alan and Margaret were arrested, we would record any conversation that they have with each other.
What are you going to say?
Because I need to win.
I say, what are you going to say? We don't know, see? I don't know anything. There's some pictures. Hmm?
I want to win.
So the evidence contained no admissions of guilt, no conversation that lends itself to what actually happened on the night or who was actually responsible, but their behaviour, their comments to each other, the general demeanour and discussion they have is absolutely of assistance to our case.
I don't understand anything about else.
Alan says to Margaret, I don't want to say anything because they might have.
And then they go quiet.
And then they go quiet. You heard that?
Yeah.
What was it that he might say that he wouldn't want the police to hear? These are potentially significant, suspicious comments, and I'd be interested to hear, if they're brought in for further interviews, what explanation they give.
In light of the recorded evidence and along with the review of all of the investigation material, it enables me to have Alan and Margaret rearrested for the conspiracy to murder Carol.
Morning.
Morning, Margaret.
Yeah. Oh, Winnie, wait.
Is Alan here as well?
Oh, hello.
Can we come in, please?
Yep.
Thank you. Is he up?
No.
Oh, okay.
Winnie, Andrew.
Just going to come up. It's the police.
Alan? Right, I need you to listen to me, okay? Following your previous arrests and release, okay, a number of inquiries have been conducted over a period of time. As a result of those inquiries, I'm now arresting you on suspicion of conspiracy to murder Carol Patricia Morgan on or before the Thursday, the 13th of August, 1981.
So I'm arresting you on suspicion of conspiracy to murder. Okay. And that is the murder of Carol Patricia Morgan on or before the Thursday, the 13th of August, 1981. Right. Okay.
So the plan today is that yourself and your wife are going to come with us. We're going to go to Bedfordshire Police Headquarters, where you're going to be interviewed throughout the day. Okay? And then decisions will be made thereafter. So I need you to get yourself dressed and ready to go, please.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All right. That's everything.
Do it, love.
Just don't tell me.
Yeah, I know. To be honest, love, I don't know what they've done.
You must have seen it.
You're right. Yeah. Our suspects were arrested this morning. They've been transported back up to Bedfordshire, so we're awaiting their arrival. I just need to check in with the team and see what's happened, what I need to be aware of, and make sure that everything's running as it should be. This will be the final stage of our investigation. And the fact that our lawyer, Charles Saunders, from the Crown Prosecution Service is present here with us is very encouraging.
On the basis of the material I have already and the review of all the material that's been undertaken, I'm almost in a position where I can make a charging decision. The police have now gathered this evidence from the recordings, and it's really important that I understand Alan and Margaret's view and explanation of that recording before I make a charging decision.
So this is a conversation between you and Alan on the 27th of November, so when you were first arrested. So it's difficult to hear, but you shush there and you whisper somewhere outside as well.
To Winnie, probably. That sounded like.
From the point of view it looks from me, this looks very suspicious. Is there anything, you'd laugh about it, but...
I know I'm laughing
is
about
there, is
it,
there
but
anything...
no comment.
Well, tell me why I'm getting that wrong.
No comment.
You lower your voice for that part when you're shushing him, and you whisper something to him deliberately so he can't hear, and then you raise your voice back up again, either side saying, I need a wee.
Don't know.
So we can't hear what you're saying.
As I have said before, on every occasion, I am absolutely nothing to do with it.
So why would an innocent person do that? Why would you shush someone that's trying to get their story straight for the police? Why not protest your innocence? She started with I need a wee, and then finished with I'm going to say I need a wee.
No comment.
To cover the shushing and then whispering in the middle.
No comment.
Why is it you find this funny, Alan?
I'm going to say something now.
No, you don't have to.
I am. Have you ever been in this situation that I'm in now?
Thankfully not.
Right.
I'm not sure I'd laugh.
No, if you wouldn't like it.
Right.
It doesn't matter what I say.
We agree on that.
All right?
Yeah.
Whatever I say...
Yeah.
Or whatever you say...
The problem is you're not saying anything else.
No. I'm trying.
Well, you just go no comment?
No, shit. I know I'm not saying no comment because I'm frightened of what you're going to do even if...
What we're doing is trying to get your...
No, you're not. You're trying to incriminate me in doing whatever.
How?
I don't know.
Nor do we, because we're not trying to...
Can we just have a break?
Okay.
The only people that have benefited from Carol's death are you and Alan, Margaret. Nobody else.
How many times do I have to keep saying I have had nothing to do with this?
The only person that can benefit from this is you and Margaret, and which is exactly what happened. She moved in a short while later. You played happy families and moved away a couple of months later. The shop was sold up and bought and paid for, and then you went on to buy another shop, and everything was fine after that. Is there anything you want to tell us?
No comment.
She was probably advised to go no comment, but in true Margaret style, she couldn't do that. She reiterated several times that she wasn't involved, that he wasn't involved.
She's not denying that what we're telling her is happening.
Just can't explain it.
She
Yeah.
just said, I don't remember the conversation, I don't know why I would do that. I said, do you agree that what we've read out is what's been played to you? And she's like, yeah, that's definitely me shushing. That's definitely in doing what you're saying. But I just don't remember the conversation, and I don't know why I would do that. But we're totally innocent. That's all the way through. We're totally innocent. However, if I was a third person, I'd think the same as you.
Okay. No, if you're innocent, you know you're
Yeah,
innocent.
that's
You
what I said.
protest your innocence,
This is how
and
I
you have nothing to hide. You're not worried about anybody recording you.
So it's mainly no comment, and he did stay no comment this time because every time he went to talk and he did want to talk, the solicitor just tapped him on the side.
Yeah, I mean, we've probably suggested, like, the shushing, I don't want to say anything because you're clearly aware that it's been recorded. You've clearly got something to hide, and you're not telling us. You're clearly involved in some way with Carol's murder, but you're just not prepared to tell us about it. No comment. So I was like, well, that speaks for itself.
I think that brings us to you, Sean, and whether...
You're all sitting there hoping,
Well,
aren't you?
what do you... Is there anything else you need from us?
No.
What do you need?
I don't need anything else.
Okay.
So I think I've got it all, and I don't think that anything that they've said today changes anything that we've previously discussed or thought about over the last 5 years. I think we're happy that there's nothing in there that's going to catch us out, which is the most important thing. Nothing at trial that's suddenly going to come out that we don't know about. With that in mind, I think there is enough evidence to charge both of them with conspiracy to murder.
Excellent.
And I just need to finish off the advice. It's pretty much done, and I will be able to hit the button.
To finally get to that point where an independent decision maker is saying, yeah, we're going to charge, the evidence is sufficient to charge, it's a huge, huge relief, but it's also a great deal of satisfaction.
Hello again. Okay, so CPS have come back with a charging decision to charge you with one offence. This officer here is going to read out the charge.
On the 13th of August 1981 at Leighton Buzzard in the county of Bedfordshire, you conspired together with Margaret Morgan to murder Carol Morgan.
So, in relation to that charge, Alan, do you want to make a reply?
Not guilty.
Okay.
Carol was a really, really ordinary woman, and I don't say that unkindly. She was just an ordinary woman doing a really ordinary job in a really quiet housing estate, and she died in a most extraordinary way. And actually, if you take out of the picture the robbery hypothesis and look at it, who else had a motive to kill her? Who else would have wanted her dead? And why was she killed with such ferocity? So it comes down ultimately to motive, and then really the only people who needed or wanted her dead were Alan and Margaret. It gave them what they needed. It gave them what they wanted. They wanted to be together, and there wasn't any other way. It's horribly simple, but devastating and very sad. for Carol and Carol's family.
You are charged with the following offence. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention now something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. On the 13th of August 1981 at Leighton Buzzard in the county of Bedfordshire, conspired together with Alan Morgan to murder Carol Morgan.
In relation to that charge, do you want to make a reply?
Wish to plead not guilty.
Not guilty, okay?
I did Alan and then she did, Kelly did Margaret.
Not guilty?
Yeah, they both said exactly the same. Both said not guilty straight away. Yeah.
Just because we've charged them, they ain't going to suddenly roll over and say, oh yeah, all right, you're right, are they? So
that's done.
Good.
From the outset, I always thought we had a good chance of detecting this and seeing Alan and Margaret charged with this offence. I'm just pleased for the team because they've worked so hard on this. I get a great deal of satisfaction out of knowing they will feel elated as to what we've achieved today.
So now that we have charged Alan and Margaret, it's time to prepare for a Crown Court trial. So today is our first day of the trial at Luton Crown Court. Do I believe that Alan and Margaret are involved in Carol's murder? Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. I think they're involved, have orchestrated it. But it doesn't matter what I think, does it? It's the jury that determine that.
A trial many feared would never see the light of day finally got underway, almost 43 years after Carol Morgan was hacked to death and found on a shop floor in the town of Linslade.
42 years after his second wife, Carol, was found repeatedly struck with an axe or a machete, Alan Morgan and Margaret Morgan, who was his lover at the time and is now his third wife, arrived at Luton Crown Court to face charges of conspiracy to murder, charges they both deny.
Telling a story through the structure of a trial is always hard, but here we've got decades that have passed. And so what I really want the jury to be able to understand is the nature of that illicit affair that Alan and Margaret were having with each other, and also understanding the evidence that either or both of them conspired with another killer to commit the murder of Carol Morgan.
Jurors in the trial of a couple accused of conspiracy to murder have retired to consider their verdict. The couple, who are in their 70s, have been on trial at Luton Crown Court for the past 8 weeks.
The jury are in their room, deliberating. We have no idea. The whole process is sacrosanct, locked down. Only they know what they're talking about. It could still go one or two ways. The worst possible outcome, I think, for everyone would be a hung jury, because I'm fairly confident we would go again if that panned out. And that brings a whole rehash of all the stresses and trials and tribulations we and the witnesses have been through.
All the evidence suggests that we've got the right people. So unfortunately, I think if it becomes back as not guilty, that'll be the end of it. There won't be any, it will remain open, but there's no evidence to suggest any other routes or lines of inquiry.
It's a nerve-wracking time for everyone involved, but obviously this is the summation of years of work for us. So it's a bit, you just don't know what's going to happen, so it's just a waiting game, really.
Well, everything is at stake. Everything's at stake. This is, this has been a 6-year journey for me. It's been a 43-year journey for justice for Carol Morgan and Carol Morgan's family. So everything's at stake. It's the first time anybody's been charged, stood trial in relation to Carol's murder. So the outcome of this is really significant. After a 6-year investigation and a 43-year journey for justice for Carol Morgan, we finally got our verdict. Alan Morgan has been convicted unanimously of conspiracy to murder Carol Morgan. The jury were out deliberating for almost exactly 1 week, and they've acquitted Margaret Morgan of conspiracy to murder. She's free, she's at liberty to go and get on with her life as she sees fit, but clearly that life will now be without Alan Morgan.
The verdict against Margaret is one that the jury came to. I can't go behind that. They heard all the evidence, they made their decision. I have no way of knowing what it was that made them come to that conclusion. But the evidence against Alan was always going to be stronger.
Alan Morgan, you fall to be sentenced for conspiracy to murder your wife, Carol Morgan, who was savagely killed on the 13th of August 1981. Only one person knows the identity of the murderer, and that is you, Mr. Morgan. That is the secret which you have harboured for the last 40 years. The law has now caught up with you, and you must pay due punishment for your part in this crime. There's only one truly wicked person who's been in this court, and that is you, Alan Morgan. For conspiracy to murder, I sentence you to imprisonment for life. Taking into account the aggravating and mitigating factors to which I have referred, the minimum term to be served shall be 22 years. You may be taken down.
Margaret, is there anything you'd like to say? Any reaction to the sentence?
I'm really pleased with the sentencing. We couldn't have asked for more. I was somewhat surprised. I was concerned that the minimum term was going to be a lot less than 22 years. I think it sends out a fantastic message.
The sentence was a just one, in accordance with the law as it was at the time. Whilst it's going to be difficult for Alan to spend 22 years or the rest of his life in prison, it's only fair that he has to be punished for what he did to Carol.
And Carol's life was taken away so suddenly, so shockingly. She didn't deserve any of this, and she should be living her life to the full.
Carol has missed out on seeing her children grow into adulthood, seeing them have successful lives, seeing them become parents and becoming a grandparent. She has been robbed of all of that. I'm obviously pleased with the conviction of Alan. However, our efforts to bring anybody else who has played a part in this conspiracy to justice will continue, because I think we owe Carol that.